Hello and welcome to the Building Men podcast. My name is Dennis Smeralda. Building Men is geared toward helping you become the strongest version of yourself, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I am thrilled today to have on a very special guest. This is a man who I started following along his journey on Instagram. We connected with each other maybe about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and he's just a fascinating individual. And one thing that I am so intrigued with is someone that goes through this hero's journey. Someone that kind of starts in a spot and they go through this rough stretch in life and they have to prevail and persevere. And there's this resiliency that has to happen for someone to pull themselves up out of a difficult situation. So over the last maybe 2 months, I've been interviewing a lot of people that have gone through this hero's journey. And the gentleman I'm about to talk to today has certainly gone through that hero's journey. So I would like to introduce the host of the Walking Purpose podcast. He has a Instagram page called I Am Dark Superman. So if you don't follow it yet, please go and follow along. And part of the Walking Purpose podcast is kind of a select group of men that joins along, and it's called the Uplift Kings. So just wanted to welcome Mr. Craig Cooper. Craig, welcome to the Building Men podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm excited to this opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Craig, what I wanted to do is I'll kind of start in kind of the middle of your story. I started following along with the Walking Purpose podcast recently, trying to digest as much information as possible about you to get to know you a little bit deeper before you came on the Building Men podcast. And the one episode that really stuck out to me was you talked about your journey and your battle against depression. And I know it's kind of it's a tough place to start, but I think that'll really paint a true picture of who you are and what you've overcome. And the thing that really stuck out to me, Craig, is my audience knows that I was a teacher and then a principal for a long period of time. For over a decade, I was a principal, and a lot of that time was in middle school. And you talk about your experience in middle school or in school and kind of how you were treated and how you felt. And that led you down a path of kind of a depressive path. So would you mind just kind of sharing with your audience, kind of starting there along your journey in middle school or in your school experience when you were kind of classified in this specific area and what that did to you and your mental state?
Sure. I'm happy to share. So I really feel like my mental health journey and my battle with depressions, the further I get from that age, the more I realize where it started from. The more I realize how that played a factor of my adulthood and how I view myself. Unfortunately, certain things I had to go through my 20s, my early 30s. So I was in fourth grade at the time, and I got pulled out of class. You know, a regular class setting is normally 30, 25 kids sometimes, maybe 30 school system, right? And I got pulled out of class. I got pulled into class was labeled at the time as special ed class. And you get pulled into a class, and it's like 5 or 6 students in there, sometimes even 2. And you look around, there's no windows. It's so super small. Kids walking past you saying, oh, you're in a slow class. At this time, I'm not understanding what this verbiage is. I'm like, okay, is this what I'm getting labeled as? So I remember coming back into my class. We had switched class and go back to, what is called the regular class. The teacher's right on the blackboard, the warm up for today. And she mumbles under her breath. I guess she's thinking no one can hear her. And I'm approaching her, going to ask her a question. I can't remember the question was. She goes, the retarded kids are coming. Me at 9 years old hearing that, I'm like, damn, is that how I'm getting viewed? Now, these are your teachers. These are supposed to protect you, supposed to encourage you. They're with you 9-10 hours a day, sometimes even longer. So, and I realized how I got called that over and over again. I feel like that was a form of verbal abuse. And that followed me. I was in those classes until I was in 12th grade. And they were super easy. They weren't a challenge. And I work in school system right now, I do security, but I look at it as I'm not just a security guard. I'm somebody's big brother. I'm somebody's father figure. I never give a kid those negative statements that I was fed. I always give kid, hey, you can do it. Even if you had those rough moments of behavior, and I'm trying to correct you, because those words follow you into your adulthood. That followed me up to my 20s. I'm like, and I remember when everyone's graduating high school. Oh man, I'm going to this university. I'm going to this university. I'm going here. I'm like, damn, what am I doing? So it's unfortunate back then. I feel like teachers weren't really pushing their students saying you can go to college. Or if you don't go to college, you still can be successful. You know what I'm saying? So now I feel like it's a lot different now. Kids are not segregated to certain things. Even like in the cafeteria, you got one side on this where it's like 12 classes on one side. And then you got the other class on this side where it's 4 students. So you're always being separated. So now society has separated you the whole time. So that followed me into my adult life. I'm like thinking, I can't do anything right. I feel like people are like, oh man, back in the day, I went to this school and that school. I didn't enjoy my school life at all. I was too busy trying to find myself. So I don't remember anything positive about it, you know?
And as I think about that, I remember growing up. You probably heard the same thing growing up. You would hear people say, "Sticks and stones can break your bones, but names will never hurt you," and that's bullshit, right?
Yes,
Bullshit, because while sticks and stones can break your bones, it's a lot of the damage that's done by people saying things to you and cutting you down. It's the inside. That's where the bruises are. They're happening on the inside. And so for you to hear that comment from an educator, someone that's supposed to be inspiring you and educating you and motivating you to be the best version of yourself, to try to aspire to be great, you hear this comment from someone in authority. As a former principal, I would tell you that person would never work again in education if it were up to me. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to hear that an adult said that to a 4th grade student, someone that he or she was supposed to be, helping become, and it did the exact opposite to you. So when you hear that, Craig, I just to stay in that area for a second, when you hear that, all of us, all automatically, you kind of get into the spot. Well, maybe I'm not able to be. Maybe I can't sit on the other side of the cafeteria. And now there's this structure set up not only in the classroom where you said there were no windows in this classroom, so you can't
yeah.
even see the damn sunlight. So now you're in this classroom with no windows and doors, and then or a door, and then you go out into the cafeteria, and you're still in a small population of students. So as you look across the cafeteria, what are your thoughts from your what do you feel as you're looking across the cafeteria at your classmates or people that you should be associating with?
I remember like I went to a stage where I was hearing voices in my head. And I thought I was crazy, but it was kind of like negative voices in my head, like saying you're not good enough. I kept hearing it over and over again to a point where I haven't never told nobody this before. To one day I yell, everybody shut the fuck up. Excuse my language.
No, please.
real loud. I yell, everybody just got quiet because I could hear it so much that I just did like this. And people thought, what's wrong with him? I got to a lot of fights because of my class. And that made me to be an introvert. That made me to be quiet. I got picked on. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm not trying to fight you. Not because I'm scared, because I'm scared what I'm do to you. And that was I always had to defend myself. And every time I done something great, I always be like, oh, you did good. Yeah, I know. So it's always that defensive mode I had to go into.
Right.
And adulthood, when I was trying to find my career, trying to find certain things, when I do something, I'm like, yeah, I know that was great. So I'm always got to defend myself. Always got to have a guard up, so I always got to protect myself. And I'm very selective of who I let in, what I'm saying? Even as an adult, even this telling the story is a powerful moment because I feel like it helps someone else out in the sense of there are a lot of kids who go through that same thing. You never know what a kid is going through. You never know how your words can affect him or her, and how your words can cause a kid to fall into depression, fall into suicide, fall into anything.
And when you say that, Craig, I think about this. A lot of the last year, and I still work with educators all over the country, pretty much trying to teach teachers how to teach the right way, to not stereotype kids and to really take into consideration the importance of the social emotional piece of their education. And if you think about it, especially via Zoom, so a lot of teachers have had to teach virtually and do things via Zoom and things like that over the last 12 months or so. It's given teachers a deeper insight into what's going on underneath the surface. So if you think about a kid, as an iceberg in the classroom. Something you could see certain things that are above the surface. You can see maybe their gender. Sometimes maybe you can't even understand what their gender is. You can see something about their ethnicity. You can see maybe some of the physical traits. Maybe you can understand a little bit about their developmental background, some things from their cumulative file historically. But there's so much that's happening underneath the surface that you can't see in that iceberg. So for you to say all the shit that was going on in your head and you just had this outburst, now it probably tells them, oh, he's absolutely in the right spot because he's having this outburst. But what you were doing was you were thinking, you were trapped in this negative self-talk mode from a comment that was made by a teacher. So now you're in this negative self mode, and you probably thought in your mind that you were walking maybe at a pace, but everybody else around you was maybe going a little bit quicker or getting to their goal a little bit faster than you were able to, right?
Yeah, correct. That's it. That's exactly how I viewed it. Because even the class that I was in, I feel like it's not challenging. Everyone, I'm doing my work, I'm finished. I'm like, okay, what
Now what?
how y'all feel? And I feel like I was always separated. And I feel like you can't, oh man, this kid can go to college, he's gonna be successful. You pat them on the back and gave them that love. What about us? We feel like you feel like there's a negative stereotype that they're going to end up in jail. They're going to work at fast food the rest of their life. They're going to be at Burger King. They're going to be these labels that get put on you as a child. That stuff stick with you. So now you're thinking, well, maybe it's true. Maybe I should just get a fast food drink. And I feel like if I was pushed more, I would have found my path in life a lot quicker. But aspect, I don't regret anything I've been through because it made me who I am as a person. So there is that also, So maybe if I experience certain things, I wouldn't help out certain people. So there's always that factor also.
And think about this too. So you want teachers to be able to motivate and inspire you, to understand how you learn, and so to challenge you, but do so in a way like they know what your developmental strengths are, they know what they can do to push you. But at the same time, don't patronize you. Don't give you work that's so easy where you're looking around like, are you kidding me? Like I'm above this right now. And it was almost like, Craig, you were put in a box. You were tamped down to where you were like, you know what, I'm capable of so much more than this, but I'm not getting an opportunity because of what they believe that I am. And you were more than that. You were much more capable than that.
Right. I definitely agree with that. I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and just like I'm like, damn, if I had them back then, things would be different. You know what I'm saying? So
if I were to ask you, what would you have done differently? So say now at that age, you're in fourth grade, you're 9 years old, and you realize, okay, that whatever the reason was, and typically when there's a student that's classified in special education, it's not that they have any less cognitive ability. It's just that there's something, the way that students learn is a little bit different. They're actually very bright students. It's just that something exists that's preventing them to reaching their potential, right? So now you're classified into a special education class. What would you have done differently if you had a chance? You could make the fucking Craig Cooper walking purpose school. What would you do differently that would have helped you as a student? What would you have done to change the trajectory? So you have a chance to create your school. What does that look like?
Oh, good question. So the thing where I realized as a kids, as young adult, as older generation, the biggest thing that we worry about is what other people think. That's the biggest. Once you get to the point where you don't give a damn what no one thinks, you're super powerful, especially in high school. In high school, we care about what everybody thinks. Oh, were you proud in high school? No, I wasn't. I'm trying to find who I am as a person. One thing I would say to myself, and I would have, if I didn't care what no one think, I wouldn't get out into less fights. I wouldn't be super defensive. I will also understand that my learning is different than everybody else. Doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It doesn't mean I'm slow. I'm a visual learner. I need to see things hands-on. I'm gonna make a mistake. Oh no, can you explain that? I want to see you do that. That's how I learn. He's an adult. How you do that? Can you show me how to do that? I'm learning my learning style. I know how I learn. Also, just the way finding my voice. Mm-hmm. I hate talk as a youth. I hated how I talk as an adult at some point, but I'm just learning to love. And that's something that I would definitely but use as, if I can go back then, learn to love me as an individual. That I don't care what no one thinks. I learn differently, and that's okay. So instead of me attacking negative words, feed myself something positive every single day. And that's something that I do now every morning.
It's funny you mentioned that. One of the podcasts that I listened to, and I just jotted down the note. Basically, one thing that you said in one of the, I don't remember which podcast it was, but it was basically fuck what they think.
Yes.
It's what great advice to give to yourself as a student growing up, because we're so hyper focused on other people's opinions of ourselves, and what it really comes down to is most people aren't thinking about you anyway. Most people are so focused on their own shit in their own life. We think that everybody's thinking about us because that's that looking glass self thing that we go through. But once you realize, fuck what they think, I'm going to do what's best for me, be the best person I can be, and then show up for other people in a really positive way.
I love that. I go to Gold's Gym, right? And when I first joined there, I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me. Oh my gosh, I got the wrong form. Oh my gosh, why I'm wearing this tank top? You thinking those things, and half time people ain't really thinking about you. So once you get those minds, even if they are, fuck what they think. It gives you a freedom of, okay, I got this. It really gives you that freedom to say, you know what, I'm not worried about what no one thinks about me. I'm not worried about certain things. It puts you in a better path of your journey. Just thinking that concept right there.
And so on the podcast that you did about depression, you really go deep into this kind of spot in your life. So you were working at a fast food place after high school. You were in your early 20s, and you were getting up every morning. You would have to kind of talk yourself into just getting out of the door. So you were really, really struggling with your mental health. And mental health isn't something that at the time, and I was in the same place that you were, mental health wasn't something that was normalized for men to speak about. You just like, all right, rub some dirt on it, fucking put your pants on and get out the door, do what you got to do. So the fact that you were struggling with mental health, talk to me a little bit about what that was like in that time in your life, and how you were able to go to that low spot and then help pick yourself out. And or maybe who helped you pick yourself up out of that low spot?
Okay, this is going to be a long answer. So
yeah, we got time.
Okay, cool. So I feel like my hardest part of my journey was from 2008 all the way up to 2010. In 2011, like beginning the stages of trying to beat depression. So every morning, it's like a battle for me to even get out the door. It took me like sometimes 5 or 10 times just to get out the house. And I'd be crying. I couldn't understand what it was. Because back then there weren't podcasts, there weren't people, this wasn't out there like that. And men wasn't really speaking on their feelings at that time. So that was scary in itself. And I'm like, I keep crying, okay, it's my five time going now. Okay, I got this. And I had to coach myself every day just to get up in the morning. Again, it was the same thing as a child, negative thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Racing. So I'm like this every morning. So it got to the point where one day in particular, I'm working at a fast food restaurant, working at Popeyes. I'm 20 something years old. And again, this goes back into me feeling those negative thoughts when I was a youth, thinking I'm not good enough. And I was on a train, had sunglasses on, and I'm crying. You know how I get that slow tear that runs down your face? I'm like, fuck, I ain't trying to show my emotions. I'm okay. And I was like, you know what? I told myself, this is it. And what I was going to do was, I was going to fake like I was sick. I was going to go home and take myself out. That was the plan that I was going to do. And I go to the back and I started crying. I had to run to the back. And I was, my best friend at the time, she's like, something's not right with Craig. It's one of those things where, are you okay? I'm good. Why are you so quiet? I'm fine. But you don't look like, I said I'm fine. Why you keep asking me? What? So I became really aggressive when someone asked me what's wrong, because I didn't want to make eye contact with anybody. Hey, what's up? How you doing? I'm good. I'm fine. And so she's snatching my phone. She calls my mom. Something's wrong with Craig. I don't know what it is. And he's crying. And she goes, okay, I'm going to call him. So I go home. I go in the mirror, I'm just crying my eyes out. This is the moment I just feel like, you know what, this is it. And I'm telling myself all these lies about how no one's going to miss me, how no one loves me. And I'm okay. I got a bottle of pills. It was those moments where I wanted to do it, but I want someone just to hug me.
Yeah.
You know, I want someone just to hug me tight and say, I love you. My mom called me, said, what's wrong with you? I said, Ma, I give up. And she comes home that day. At the time, I was still living with my mother at the time. She come home, she just hugged me, gave me the tightest hug in the world. At that time, my father wasn't really active in my life. So as a male, it's kind of hard to express those feelings of what you're going through.
Yeah.
That depression followed me, that affected every area of my life, even in our relationships. And there was this everything I'm explaining is right around within the same month. So I'm kind of going in circles. So at the time I was dating this girl, and it was a long distance relationship. You remember when they had like the AOL Messenger back then?
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember the exact sentence. I was like, babe, I'm going through this. I don't know what it is. I had a hard time explaining it because I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, can you help me out? I'm thinking I'm going to get some words of encouragement. I'm thinking I'm going to get, I love you. I'm going to get something like that. Instead of that, I got taught to laugh. Not like smirking, like hold your stomach and laughing, like you pathetic. Like anyway, so again, this goes back into me feeling those negative words back then. So I'm thinking like, dang, I can't do nothing right. So instead of her encourage me, she goes on myspace.com and writes a blog about me for everything I told her. And then you end up cheating on me the same week. So I'm getting fed all this negative stuff at once. And it was the scariest thing in the world. And I go to church. I talked to my pastor at the time. He just shook me. He talked to me as a man. He didn't talk to me as a pastor, give me the whole, I pray for you, and then leave you alone. He talked to me saying, I remember what he said to me. He said, the world's a better place because you're in it. I can't tell you how powerful that was. It's funny because I actually posted that today. They know that was, what I'm saying? I was like, I need that. And those were bits and pieces of me trying to find myself and start to go to the gym and start to, lose a weight a little bit, start to do affirmations every single day, start to pray. There were certain things that were like keys into me finding myself.
So when I hear that story, Craig, one, thank you for sharing that. I know that's a deep emotional story that you just shared. So think about, and you're growing up, and you mentioned your father wasn't a part of your life. You have teachers that are pushing you down, telling you that you're not worthy or worthwhile, and then you have a significant other who, when you came to her at this moment of despair in your life, the reaction is not one of "I'm here for you, I'm with you." It was this opposite reaction of like making fun of you and not being there for you. One, thank God for your mother coming home and squeezing you that day.
Yes.
She wasn't there for you to hold you tight and to tell you that she loved you, and then for your pastor to tell you that your other people will eventually look up to, is basically what I heard. You are here for a reason, and that was the reason, is to kind of help other people that maybe have struggled with what you went through. So now you're at this spot and you're like, okay, you were at this low, and you mentioned your one podcast that all of a sudden your mom signed you up for the gym. And so you start doing this daily affirmation, you start kind of believing in yourself a little bit more, and so you hit the gym. So talk to us about how that helped you kind of get out of that mental state that you were in and help push you in a positive way.
The gym was more like a physical confidence. It was a part of my journey also. So I remember going in the gym one day, and I remember going in, I got this baggy shirt on, baggy pants. And I'm like, okay, what if I just come on to this? And I started to look up, I go to the gym, I started looking up to certain things like YouTube videos of Kobe Bryant talking all the time, like mom mentality. That was something I got forever strong from him, from listening to him every day. And I started to feel good, feel good about myself, started to lose weight, started to get little muscles. And I started to date and everything like that. But I realized I still need to do some work on myself. It's good to lose weight. It's good to get that six pack. It's good to get the muscles and everything. But what about the inner work? So I started to, my best friend, CJ, he's a martial artist. So he introduced me to martial arts. So now I'm working on the physical, as far as losing weight and all that. Now I got the discipline aspect also with martial arts. So now I got my faith all tied into certain things. So now I'm surrounding myself with great people, great strong men. I actually talk to even to this day. Craig, you good? You know what? To be honest, nah, I ain't feeling it. I got you. I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna pull up on you. Now I got that also coming together. Now I got a relationship with my father that's also coming together also. I remember one day in particular that my first time speaking on my journey as far as mental health, I spoke on stage. He couldn't make it because he had to work. He calls me afterwards and said, son, man, I'm proud of you. I said, oh, man, when I first heard that, I was like, damn, I need to hear that. Then his son, I love you. I was like, I got so emotional to hear that. Because sometimes us as men, we think that we don't need that to someone to say, I love you. To someone to say, from man to man, to think, oh, why are you saying you love me? You know what I'm saying? That was important. I got the first time I hugged my father. So I got that healing aspect that I always needed as a youth. And the relationship with my fiance, her just super encouraging. When we first got together, I lost two important people in my life. And at the time we was long distance. She's in Maryland, right? And she calls me out the blue. And I'm just crying my eyes out before she called. And she answers, the phone rings. I'm like, oh, fuck, I gotta show my emotions. In the back of my head, I'm thinking about what I went through in my past. But I'm thinking, this is not the same person. So she says, it's okay. I was like, I need to hear that.
Yeah.
I got you. And then it's like, gave me the hug, like, I got you, it's okay. That helped me, all those aspects have helped me become the man I am today. Just to have that discipline, have the right men around me, have my mom, my father, my fiance, everything, myself, loving myself also. You know what I'm saying? If I don't love me, I ain't doing nobody no justice. That self-love journey is important because if I don't got that affects everything around me.
Absolutely. I think that's one thing that young men don't understand, as you have to do right by your significant other, by your family. For me, I have 3 kids, by my kids. But if I'm not the best me I can be, if I'm not good inside, if I don't do that inward journey, then I'm worthless otherwise. So you have to start in that inward journey, and the work that you did over the years to get okay with yourself, that has helped you become who you are today. What you said about your father calling you and telling you that he's proud of you and he loved you, that struck a chord with me, and I'll share a little bit with you and the audience. I've talked a lot about my relationship with my father. It's a very complex relationship, and it's gotten so much better over the years. And one thing that stuck out to me was my father. I know that he loved me. I know what he did, but it wasn't something in his generation that men said to their sons. It just wasn't a spoken thing. I guess he's a blue collar worker, worked his ass off, tough as nails, and it wasn't something that I ever heard growing up. So I make a point to my own children, and especially to my son, to tell him I love him all the time, even if it's over the top too much. But he needs to know that.
Yeah.
And so when I finally heard it from my father was probably in my late 30s, early 40s, that he said the words to me. And I just remember getting choked up thinking about that. I knew it the whole time, but just to hear those words, it's such a powerful thing. And to know there's that level of pride, even if you slip up from time to time, knowing that there's that, love that's there forever and coming from your father is just a really, really special thing. So that resonated with me, the fact that was a thing that you recalled at that moment you're about to get on stage.
Yeah, that's something that I'm still adjusting to because it's still new and it still feels good. Like I can text my dad something, he'll call me instantly, and I can text him anything. Like, son, it feels good to have that. It reminds me, like you just said, when we have kids, I'm gonna tell my son, I'm gonna tell my daughter, I love you. You're gonna know that. I feel like love is an action word also. It ain't just I love you. No, I'm gonna show you what love is. Like we have our first child and have our first daughter. No, I'm gonna take you on daddy-daughter dates. I'm gonna show you how that man supposed to treat you. I'm gonna talk to my son about relationships and tell him what kind of woman you should accept. the red flags you should look out for. There are certain things that I didn't get. So to pass on those things and break generational curses is very important.
And so you were just referring to positive men in your life that helped you and are still helping you when things are challenging for you. I think that there is also a void with men at some point. I think it's like when you kind of get married and you have kids, you have your boys, and then and it happened for me that you kind of go off a little bit and you're so hyper focused on your marriage and your family and your kids and the day-to-day things that you have to do, you kind of lose track of those men in your life. And I think we need men in our life to hold us accountable and to have that kind of brotherhood feel with. So having said that, when you think about that and the importance of men in your life and masculinity, what that means, what are certain lessons maybe that you learned from, it could be from anybody in your life, that have helped you define what masculinity is to you?
Oh, what's a good question? I feel like my circle of friends who I've held over the years, even the circle of friends where I met through Instagram, like yourself, even like there's a moments where like men are so prideful that they're not saying to enough guy, hey, I'm proud of you, or hey, love what you're doing. Like, hey man, how you doing? Not your business. No, how are you doing as a person? Those moments of being vulnerable but still being strong. I think us men have in the past we got a bad rap of just not being there for each other. You know what I'm saying? Because we got a difference in the way you vote or race or something like that. So there are certain things that for men, I feel like what we're doing right now is just breaking barriers. You know what I'm saying? You go on Instagram and everyone's collaborating together. It's a beautiful thing to watch. So to have great men in my circle, to have right now in my new circle. So it's a good thing to have with men say, hey, how you doing, brother? Just checking on you, man. Everything good? You need something? Not just those sad moments. Hey man, let's take a drive. Hey man, let's call you, checking on you. And that's very important. So with that masculinity factor in the past, it was like you feel like I ain't got nobody to go to. That's something I thought. I had people to go to, I just kept it to myself. But the whole time is my other friends were going through the exact same thing at the same time. So imagine what you can do for, hey man, I'm being honest, I'm not feeling it, I'm going through this. You might get that, hey, me too. How can I help you get through that?
And it's so important just having that level of connection. One of the reasons that I started Building Men, I started it as a boys social group when I was a principal for, kids that were like, 13, 14, 15 years old that were just going through shit as middle school kids. And I was like, you know what, at least we can learn and go through things together. And one of the things that I realized was just the importance of connection. And these are kids that they didn't run in the same circles. It was you name it, I had every ethnicity, every background in that group. And once they came together as a group, it was like it broke down a lot of the barriers that existed, the social groups that they were in, maybe the academic groups that they were in, the kids that they hung out with outside of school. It broke that shit down because they knew that it was a safe spot. You mentioned, even the race issue. Like what we're sitting here. You're down by DC, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The area. You're a black man. I'm a white man. We're having this conversation, and you just mentioned like there are ways that we can break down barriers and change shit. So my conversation with you, I value it so much. I love what you're doing. I mean, you mentioned people that say that they love you and they're proud of you. I fucking love you, man. I love what you're doing. I'm proud of you for what you're doing, and I want to be a part of your journey moving forward. I want to be a part of that group that you're establishing, because I think having people from different racial backgrounds as well, seeing for other people to witness us having a conversation in a really positive way, our motivation is to help people become better. And really, there's no that transcends all other backgrounds that we have. We're there to make people better, right? So what can we do? I mean, I'm interested in us moving this forward in a positive direction. I don't know. I mean, what can we do together to kind of help break down a lot of the barriers that exist in our society right now? It's more of a philosophical question, not what can we do tomorrow, but just in general, like what can we do as men to kind of help move that forward?
That's a great question.
I didn't write any of this shit down either, Craig. I'm going off the cuff here,
off the top of my head. It gives me time to think. Big question. Like even what we're doing right now is having conversations. A lot of people who see things who in certain areas where you only see people like you. You know what I'm saying? Wherever the race is. So you only see certain things. So your view is limited. You only see things as Black or only see things as white or Asian or whatever the case may be. Sometimes you don't see as other men having a conversation coming together. I feel like I know for a fact we are very similar in a lot of ways, you know what I'm saying? So I'm definitely looking forward to like doing certain things in collaborations and, you know, have more conversations about big topics, you know, a men's retreat.
Yeah.
That would be dope. A men's retreat. You can definitely put that together, bring in men around the world.
And think about it, that just having that brotherhood community feel is such an important thing. And once you see that everyone's kind of going through the same shit in their life, you know, I mean, it's different in many different ways, but we're all struggling to be the best we can be. And there's a lot of factors that are trying to pull us down, and it's up to us to keep moving forward, even though we're going through some shit, right? And so what you're doing with Walking Purpose podcast and then the Uplift Kings, and I want you to just talk to us a little bit about that group, the Uplift Kings, and what that group is about and what your mission is and what you kind of talk about together.
Okay, cool. So what it is so I'm launching season 2, January, Jesus. I launched season 2 June 20th. It's a roundtable talk with 5 of my guy friends. So you may see them in certain videos. You may see videos of us together. And that's the conversation about mental health. That's conversation about masculinity. That's conversation about how like stuff that men go through. Conversation about love. It's a deep conversation that's coming up June 20th. And every guy that's in that interview I've been friends with for the past 25 years. Lead them grown up with and all that. So that's something has become an interview, but it's also changed to a movement. And I see the positive outlook I see the positive response from that. So like, okay, they're like, man, let's do a part 2, let's do a part 3. And that's opened the door for certain many conversations and conversations with yourself also. So that's something that's coming up too. June.
I'm definitely looking forward to that, without a doubt. So one thing I'll you know, as we're kind of winding down on this interview right now, I'm really interested in just how you want to, you know, thinking about how you want to be remembered. So like looking back at your legacy, you know, so say, you know, Craig, you're 95 years old, you know, you have a couple of years left and you look back on your life and you say, I left this legacy. I left this kind of this behind me as I, you know, part ways and kind of go off into a better place. What would your legacy be? So if you could tell your story, what's your legacy in life?
Good question. As I turn 150 years old,
At least 150.
I'm in my rocking chair looking back. I feel like my legacy will be always to pass on knowledge, always to pass on love. I say this all the time, but I really feel like in life, you're supposed to go through what you go through, give thanks to God for bringing you out, extend the hand back to the next person, to the next generation, to the next family member, next son, next daughter, whoever, that I extended my hand back and brought someone else up. Not just through me, but through a team of people, through a team of guys, a team of people around the world, you know, just bringing that legacy on.
Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. And listen, I got to get one of these Walking Purpose t-shirts. I mean, you got some good gear there too. I noticed the gear you got going on. It's good merch.
Gotcha. I'll send you the information when we get off.
So Craig, how can the Building Men listeners find you? How can they follow along on your journey?
Okay, thank you for asking that. My individual Instagram page is I am Dark Superman. It's more of motivation. It's more of mental health. It's more of fitness. And sometimes you may get a little humor in there also. You can find me on that. Uplift Kings. Let's Uplift Kings. That is the Instagram for Walking Purpose podcast also. Again, Walking Purpose podcast is going to start June 20th on Sunday, the first episode. Also, I have a clothing brand, my fiance. It's called ImanT Clothing. We are relaunching that this summer. So I give seen the link to our page, and that's where you can find me at.
That's great. And so what I'll do is I will put all that information in the show notes. I'll put it all up on Instagram. You can follow along, post clips of this on Instagram. Craig, it was a pleasure talking to you today, my man. I'm looking forward to jumping on your podcast as well in the future. I feel like I've known you for years already, and we've only, talked for a couple minutes.
Like that, yeah. This is definitely a lifetime connection. I can definitely tell you that. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. So thank you, everyone, for listening. You could find Building Men on Instagram, building.men, on Facebook, Building Men Podcast. Email me, buildingmencoach@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to Craig Cooper and his movement and what he's doing. And we'll see you next time on Building Men.